it is. The corner of Cullum and Davenport. That big old house got me through almost every milestone of my youth. Almost. And there I am, just as awkward as I would be until I was about 18. It was the eve of Thanksgiving. Halloween still fresh in our mind, even perhaps leftover candy in our sock drawer. Thanksgiving was the gateway to the biggest time of the year. That's right, Christmas. But I wasn't just waiting for that morning. I looked forward to every holiday, every pomp and circumstance tradition you can think of. Thanksgiving might have rung in the holiday season back then, but it was just as glorious, just as memorable as the big day itself in December. But that was given a whole entire month. Thanksgiving relegated to just a day. But one day of pre-Christmas tailgating that was packed to the hilt with family, activities, laughter, and food. Oh, lots of food, and there it was. Thawed, prepped, ready to go. The biggest bird to feed a jumbo-sized family like ours. It dwarfed me for sure, and it only waited patiently to be slid into the oven. Thanksgiving week was a treat. We always had early release on Wednesday from school, perhaps to offer some less fortunate family time to travel somewhere for the holiday. Oh, but not us. We stayed right at home, and family came to our place. Who wanted to host a mom and dad with 11 kids? A 4-day weekend was a gift only second to a new action figure under the tree. And by the time Monday rolled around again, those 2 weeks off for Christmas were just a countdown chain or advent calendar away. Those last couple of days at school only served to fuel our fire for cooked fowl. Dressing as a pilgrim or American Indian to relive the rare, peaceful moment between settlers and the natives, to share in the bountiful harvest. Teachers assigning "What are you thankful for?" essays and possibly making paper plate turkeys to hang on the wall. Anything that got us away from arithmetic was welcome, but the light was leaving by 1 p.m. on that day before the big feast. Thanksgiving was here! If there was any shopping going on or preparation or pre-work for tomorrow's menu, I was oblivious. You might find me underfoot in the kitchen as the bustle steadily increased, as more people came home to ready and be ready for that one day we could all get together and be thankful for what we had. Or didn't, depending on how you look at it. With the holiday looming the next day, you couldn't afford to slip up. You had to have everything. The cream of mushroom soup, enough potatoes, the seasonings, and the exact amount of green beans, because you could bet there wasn't a store, grocery or otherwise, open for business on Thanksgiving Day. Except maybe that liquor store. Everyone was home, in a festive mood. Some looked forward to the guests who arrive. I was looking forward to an annual spread of sumptuous menu items not seen but only once a year. However, before that moist flesh and crispy skin touched my waiting lips, there was one other anticipated tradition before sitting down to feast, and it was all mine. Up long before another soul, I clicked through the channels to find it, hoping it wouldn't be on a commercial when I passed the network, making me to cycle through the internal dialing of 13 channels. It started at 6 a.m., which only seemed odd because wherever that parade was, it was bright and sunny, while outside my window still blacked by night. No matter. Once tuned in, the flickering light from this glittering kinetic display was performed just for me in the dark silence of my living room. Being careful not to make a sound, I hunkered down with a bowl of cold cereal or oatmeal and waited patiently for each amazing new entry that floated by. It would be years before I understood what all these fluffy Broadway numbers were about. Bring me the balloons! Never mind those repetitive marching bands. Bring on the gargantuan floats! That, if I was lucky, would represent one of those favorite franchises that had been made famous in this era. The greatest time for Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, the 1980s. Oh, what new visual treat of mobile animated joy would they come up with? Beyond the usual balloons and occasional debuts, some of those memorable floating stages were used year after year. Redressed by sponsors and showcasing the newest brands and featuring some celebrity whose singing performance on the parade route was even creepy and oddly out of place to my young eyes watching through an analog signal. But then there were those times that new floats were introduced for a sole purpose. Maybe used 1 or 2 times, but you hoped with all your might they would reappear this year, showing off your favorite brand of toy or movie once again. If not, they were gone forever, never to return. Sesame Street, Strawberry Shortcake, the Peanuts Gang on Ice, Barbie and the Rockers, Hanna-Barbera, Rainbow Bright, Popeye, and the most incredible go-down-in-history, astonishing parade float ever dreamed up. Masters of the Universe, with its 24 characters and multiple animation on an unbelievable first-time float. They had broke tradition and the mold with this one. Not one, but 2 hitches, as there were multiple trailers to show off this magical, eye-popping extravaganza of power and beauty. This puppy had to be pulled by more than a Dodge Ram, but a full-on Mack truck. These things were just an extension of your favorite new character, and animated stories come to life in a new and amazing way. And with VCRs being so new and almost impossible but for electrical engineers to program, few thought to record these epic street parties so you couldn't move from your seat for fear of missing a once-in-a-lifetime display. Even as Mom crept downstairs at some unknown hour to slyly start the bird of baking, I couldn't dream of assisting her, as I couldn't miss the Marvel float or even the Care Bears. If there was anything to distract me from the soon-to-be sacrificed feathered bird in the oven, it was the start of Christmas, the arrival of Santa Claus. Santa's sleigh at the end of the parade did mark the beginning of the season. Its flight down the street was a visual wonderland and a message to kids everywhere. It was time! The holidays were now in full swing, and this finale was the word. Flip the Christmas switch to on! Nothing could stop the constant barrage of Christmas commercials now. Making and editing wish lists as well as the endless gift hinting to Mom and Dad, it was here. But first, there would be turkey. By Santa's last wave, my mother had been up and down regularly for the required intervals of basting. Lifting the tinfoil hat on the bird, not my mother, she would carefully inspect the creature, taking its temperature, in this case the higher the better, before returning to bed for as much shut-eye as she could gather before all hell broke loose. More heads began to pop up in round corners, never as fresh as mine. The grumbling and shuffling went on as siblings tried to jockey for position for the next bowl of cereal. The day's events would be starting in a matter of hours, and there was still so much to do. Oh, the moving of the furniture. Every year a new configuration depending on the number of revelers, and everyone took part moving and sliding the necessary furnishings, including the additional seating areas in those early years, like the infamous kids' table. I was relegated there for some time, but I recall my graduation to larger tables for the older kids with the same pride as when I leveled up from Happy Meal to Big Macs. By now, you were overwhelmed by the scent of the bird permeating the house as time rushed by. That savory aroma soon joined by other sweet-smelling foodstuffs, the side items too abundant to count, mashed potatoes and gravy, yams and marshmallows, mushroom au gratin, green bean casserole, broccoli with cheese sauce, and so much more. And if you were lucky, or necessary, depending on the anticipated crowd levels, the flavors of sweet ham would hang on every breath you took. We had to get dressed. If you hadn't yet, you would need to get on the appropriate attire to receive guests. It may not be your finest, but you were expected to make a good impression of yourself and bring honor to your whole family. You had to medal in a triathlon to get both parents and 11 kids ready at the same time with only 2 bathrooms. But soon the doorbell would ring. Best behavior was all Mom could hope for. Tables and chairs were set to welcome visitors of both the family and the friend kind. Uncles, aunts, cousins were first to arrive. Some you recognized, others you didn't. Individuals you didn't often see during the year meant reintroductions. Showing up to take advantage of your mother's incredible menu and her hospitality is a true Thanksgiving tradition. They might have got out of hosting their own Thanksgiving, but it meant an abundance of extra side dishes and pies and desserts to only add to the cornucopia of goodness. Pleasantries complete, the visions of plates overflowing occupied my mind. Succulent turkey you only get once a year, and all the fixin' was only moments away. All the additional items offered by our guests turned this into a veritable smorgasbord. Depending on the situation, your Thanksgiving dinner could turn into an all-you-can-eat buffet where everyone could go through the line like they were at Roy's Chuck Wagon. Curious if anyone else maneuvered feeding the masses this way. I never saw TV Thanksgivings in this light. The final touch is being added, and this is where I could help. Not only would I deliver the food to the table, getting just that so much closer to every morsel, but I excitedly prepared the cranberry sauce. Putting down the can opener, I looked forward to that slow slurp as it slid from the can into the bowl. Those round, raised ring shapes encircling the beet-colored jelly was as familiar a sight that always brought me a smile. Places, everybody! But before touching a morsel, we all stood somewhere, spread out or behind a chair, silent. Someone delivered an audible grace. Besides the kids' table, there was often the one size up, the teen or young adult seating area, made from a Generation X staple, the folding card table. The seating was often designated by ages, with more senior guests at the more formal dining. Renting chairs from catering companies or local halls was not even thought about, and the seating situation most resembled the setup in Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, with the likes of rocking chairs, stools, and folding lawn chairs making their way next to the matching dining set. Like a well-rehearsed choreography of serving dishes and bowls being passed from one hand to the next, sharing the meal together became an ever-increasing ruckus. After plates were filled, louder and louder conversations of various topics could be heard. Debates, laughter, news, thoughts on local happenings, giggles, responding to gossip, or the timely "what do you want for Christmas" conversations all took place and became a deafening soundscape, all while sampling every dish as far as the eye could see. There were no doubt differences of opinion within the members of the family at the table, table. Your bread might be buttered on a different side than somebody else. That only led to family-sized ribbing, some friendly little jabs here and there before going back to simply enjoying the time together and celebrating more of the things we all shared in common. Not what we didn't. Mounting conversations increased in volume, which was hard to believe as most of us had our mouths full in a nonstop shoveling of scrumptious delicacies into our pie hole. And speaking of pie, we'll get to that later. It was all priceless, and I wouldn't have changed it for the world. We were grateful everyone was there together, and whether there were stresses or tensions, I didn't know. For a little while or even a short time, we were just reminded of not only what we had, but who we were and why we were thankful. This time and the other holidays throughout the year were exciting. The energy was off the chain, and little did you know these moments made you grow. Being part of something so grand and listening to each little conversation imprinted these familiar traditions into your brain. Traditions that molded you, that you tried to duplicate with every passing year. I hope these kinds of celebrations would never end and would always be there. And at that time, at that age, you had no indication they wouldn't. Exhausted with the meat sweats, the overeating took a break. There was a steady decrease of noise concentrated in one location. The energy didn't diminish, it just spread out into a variety of activities by various groups of holiday attendees. One of the TVs was prepared for electronic head-to-head action by connecting it to the popular video game console of the era, Magnavox's Odyssey. Yeah, the bigger TV was no question already tuned in to the day's famous gridiron battle. A small army assisted Mom in the kitchen, condensing food into right-fit containers and bowls, rearranging the fridge to fit the fixings, and making sure to pick the turkey clean for usable parts throughout the weekend. The furniture was once again rearranged into some semblance of normalcy, more into conversation corners or theater-style seating in front of the TVs. The end result may have been to get a jump start on the cleanup, but first the shuffling created a more open-air dessert buffet. The myriad of pies and goodies were displayed like a kid's version of the Louvre, but with edible art. Masterpieces to be picked at through the evening alongside paper plates and napkins. Disposable tableware was as chic as any fine crystal. A live football game was inevitable on the street out front of the house. Playing outside on a crisp and often cold autumn day, us youngsters would burn energy and calories with a yard game, like freeze tag or "What time is it, Mr. Wolf?" When the dessert bell was finally rung, you dropped the ball at the corner of the yard to return to afterward, once you had your fill of a sugar rush. A sea of flour and frosting. Crust and cookies would be ogled and picked at until late. Those first platefuls of pies and cakes found everyone once again relaxed in a corner, a spot outside anywhere they could stake a claim. Even the kitchen was in bounds until you trashed your plate and continued the day's itinerary, whether playing together on the video game console, outside in the yard, or cheering your favorite team at kickoff, maybe lugging toys out or using the time to visit with gone-too-soon family. The comfort of togetherness that had eased seamlessly into everyone's day was not quick to turn off. It was rare to see someone run off and hide away in their room for more than a minute, and we didn't have modern digital tech screens to absorb every minute of the day. Even if you were playing on the handheld classic football game by Mattel, it was just some good old-fashioned electronics you shared in two-player mode. As the sky transformed to dusk, neighbors began to congregate into our yard. Families on the block would be completing their proper Thanksgiving dinner, and kids of all ages would wander together to join in whatever activity was on our corner lot. Kids out of the house, Mom and whoever she could muster to help her clean up the dishes would dish about what they could in the few minutes left they had together. Visiting in the house or playing outside, Thanksgiving ran like clockwork with food, football, friends, family. And then it got dark or too cold. Time to seek refuge inside to relax and sip on something warm. Extended families said their goodbyes. Short visits by friends and neighbors ended with them heading back to their own homes for the holiday. We kids were smart. We didn't hang around the kitchen, not with the fear of being drafted into dishes to me. Some last-minute straightening up was always inevitable, and most of us were happy to help. As the night waned on, teens would finally disappear to do their own thing, and with the emptying and quieting house, Mom and Dad, with coffee in hand, would finally get that moment of peace together that had eluded them most of the day. At their feet, I'd probably convince someone to partake in a board game, pulled down from one of the dozen or more shoved onto the shelf while enjoying the TV in the background. Christmas commercials had invaded the airwaves. This era produced some of the most timeless, from Coors and Bud Light to McDonald's. It didn't matter the product, they just sparked our imagination with holiday heartstring emotion and certainly purchasing power. The desire they created helped us steer our parents to things we wanted just 1 month later on Christmas morning. Perhaps a wacky new Christmas special or variety show with a holiday theme would end the evening. As Thanksgiving drew to a close, there would still be 3 days left in the weekend. 3 days to begin to strategize Christmas. I ready to pull out the decorations and prepare for the arrival of our live Christmas tree. Except Mom wouldn't hear of decorating until the following weekend. What, was she tired? Thanksgiving rarely deviated from the norm during this era, and it was good. As the years rolled by, it simply got, as holidays and family gatherings do, smaller, but never forgotten. I wish you all a Gen XTINCT Thanksgiving. And if you remember one like this, please let me know how it was similar or different. And if you're like me and are still able to describe your current celebration, your current Thanksgiving, something like this, count yourself lucky. There was nothing quite like it. Thank you for watching, and come back to the channel real soon. And right now, why don't you check out this holiday themed Gen? Until next time.